God of War Ragnarok is coming, and even though Sony is being extremely tight-lipped about the game, we've put together a pretty comprehensive list of all the info that's out there. Now, on top of all the gameplay changes, we will be talking story stuff, so there will be some spoilers for God of War from 2018, as well as a discussion of some of the things seen in the trailers so far for this one. Now, also note there are leaks and rumors out there, but we're not touching any of that stuff. All the information covered here is publicly available, and we won't spoil anything not seen in the official trailers. We don't want to ruin it for you, we just want to talk about the info. And of course, like always, everything we talk about, all the trailers, all the sources will be linked in the description down below. So we got 10 things, let's get started off with number 10. This is a direct continuation from the last game in more ways than one. Of course, as you probably know, it's a third-person action game where you control Kratos and son Atreus as they explore a perilous world of Norse mythology. Set in a semi-ish open world, you travel to different locations, you battle enemies, and engage in some light side quests and experience a pretty linear story. Now, if you play God of War 2018, then you'll know what to expect going in. I mean, from all the indications, this isn't a departure from the previous game, rather it's a refinement. Many iconic elements of the previous game return here, like the single camera take. There are like no camera cuts or loading screens. Once the game starts, there are no cutaways or fades or transitions, even during parts that traditionally would require a loading screen, like when Kratos travels between realms. They find clever ways to keep the single take going. Bear McCready returns for the soundtrack too. His involvement brought a very different sound to the world of God of War, but his work on the previous game is some of his best work, and considering how much stuff the guy has been involved with, that's high praise. Now, one person who isn't technically returning for this game is Cory Barlog. His DNA, of course, runs really deep in all of the older God of War games, but for some people, he really became a household name as the director of God of War 2018. But for this game, he has handed the reins over to Sony Santa Monica veteran Eric Williams, who has also worked on pretty much every God of War game in some capacity. Next, over at number 9, let's talk story. God of War Ragnarok takes place several years after the ending of the first game. Atreus is now a bit of a teenager, and the legendary Fimbulwinter is in full effect. So as the first sign of the coming apocalypse of the Norse mythology, called Ragnarok, this means that the prophecy that was revealed at the end of the previous game is coming true. Like the first game, the bond between father and son is tested as Atreus wants to learn more about his identity. In the previous game, it was revealed that he is actually Loki, the Norse god of mischief. He wants to find a way to stop the apocalypse from happening, while Kratos wants nothing to do with it. He doesn't believe in prophecy and doesn't want his son to get involved in the affairs of the gods, but judging from how things are looking, it looks like he goes along with them anyway. No matter how much Kratos wants to be left alone, he'll have to contend with many more gods looking to take revenge on him or stand in his way, like Freya, Thor, and the king himself, Odin. Of course, we have no idea what happens beyond this basic premise, but one thing we do know is that the game will have some kind of decisive ending, because Cory Barlog has confirmed that this game is the end of the Norse saga. The reason for this is pretty logical. He didn't want it to take nearly a decade or more for the story to finally end, so instead of stretching things out over 3 installments, he decided that things would conclude with the second game. But of course, like we always say, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Next, over at number 8, the one thing that people are probably most curious about, but that Sony has been incredibly secretive about, is the combat. The trailers shown so far only reveal a very few brief moments of combat, and for the most part, everything we've seen does look similar. Now, a lot of this we know thanks to Game Informer's exclusive coverage. If you want to check all that out, that's linked in the description down below. The developers have come out and said that when designing Ragnarok, they wanted to give players more choice when it comes to the combat system, which in this instance means that they wanted to make combat more dynamic. Both weapons from the first game return here, the Leviathan Axe and of course the Blades of Chaos. They got a lot of play in some of the footage that we've seen so far, and while those weapons look functionally the same, they got a few more moves to mix things up. I mean, the most obvious innovation is with the Blades of Chaos. Now you can grapple onto ledges to quickly climb vertical surfaces. You can pull yourself towards enemies and swing around the environment environment and even perform powerful smash attacks after jumping off a ledge. Just from the brief clips we've seen, there looks like a lot more vertical movement and positioning in combat encounters and combat arenas. Now, Kratos isn't just using the Blades of Chaos to pull himself around either. Like, it kind of looks like he uses them to pick up debris off the ground and fling it at enemies like a projectile in one of the story trailers. And Atreus, of course, remains an important part of combat. Even if he seems to act more independently now, we haven't seen really everything he can do, but the reveal trailer shows that he has access to runic summons, just like the first game. Another major change is how the triangle button works. In the original game, all you could do with the triangle button is press it to recall the Leviathan axe after throwing it. It was mostly unused, so the developers added an additional function to it. There are now special triangle button attacks called weapon signature moves, which can imbue each weapon with a different element. The Leviathan axe has a Frost Awaken, which imbues the weapon with ice, while the Blades of Chaos have Whiplash, which causes the blades to burst into flames. It seems like shields have some changes to them as well. Instead of having a single shield, Kratos can pick from a few different kinds. Two that have been disclosed so far are the Dauntless and the Stonewall shields. The Dauntless shield gives Kratos a big boost if he blocks at the last moment. If you get the timing right, then it looks like Kratos will perform a devastating counterattack that stuns enemies. The Stonewall shield, in contrast, is more about turtling. It can't parry at all, but it absorbs attacks and builds up an energy meter, which when full lets Kratos do a move where he kind of slams the shield into the ground and knocks back enemies. Now, those aren't even the only two shield variants in the game. Apparently there's going to be more, with even more skill-based ones to unlock as the game goes on, and we can't wait to see those. Next, over at number 7, here's another element of the game that they've been pretty secretive about, but we've seemingly discovered a few interesting tidbits. Now, we mentioned that the Blades of Chaos can sometimes grapple now, and that doesn't stop at pulling Kratos up ledges or yanking enemies. He can also grab onto highlighted swing points to get across large gaps. This all plays into the developers' drive to make the world you explore have more variety and verticality. Now that Kratos no longer needs to carry Atreus everywhere, the designers can really go nuts with Kratos' movement. Puzzles involving the Leviathan axe are still here, and you can still command Atreus to perform certain context-sensitive actions in the environment, but it looks like there will be more variety to these kinds of puzzles this time. One major gameplay difference is that instead of using a boat to navigate the hub world of the Lake of the Nine, Kratos now uses this cool sled pulled by two wolves named Speki and Svanna. With the realm engulfed in winter, the lake has frozen over, so sledding seems to be the only way to get around. Boats are still here though. It looks like they're used to explore more temperate climates that we're going to see in the game. And one interesting thing we found is that instead of enemy placement remaining static for the entire game like in the previous entry, in Ragnarok, old locations will be populated with new and more powerful enemies when you return to them. Enemy encounters in optional areas also change as the game goes on and become more populated with more difficult enemies as you progress through the story. Now, next over at number 6, let's talk about the new enemy gods. Now, just from the trailers, it's obvious that this game will have a lot more god action than in the last game. This time, of course, Kratos is going to have to take on Thor, the Norse god of thunder. Seeking revenge on Kratos for killing his half-brother Baldur and his sons Magni and Modi, Thor seems to be shown as every bit an equal to Kratos in combat. Now, one of the coolest details is how he recalls his weapon. At the very end of the story trailer, we see Thor snap his fingers to recall Mjolnir, his famous hammer. Now, from Mimir's many stories from the first game, we know that the Thor of God of War is far from the MCU version of the character that a lot of people know. This guy is a psychopathic brute who, in many ways, is a mirror to how Kratos used to be, this single-minded killing machine. Now, another god out for revenge, of course, is Freya, the Queen of the Valkyries and mother of Baldur, the main antagonist of the previous game. She wants Kratos dead for killing her son, and considering she was an ally for most of the original game, it's likely that their relationship will change somehow in this game. Or Kratos kills her maybe, I don't know, anything could happen. Then Tyr, the Norse god of war and laws, also plays a major role in the story. Atreus seeks him out hoping that he can help him stop Ragnarok, but when they find him, he's a very different character to Kratos, so that should be an interesting dynamic. The biggest question mark is the king of the gods himself, Odin. The one-eyed raven is central to the story of Ragnarok, probably, but we've only gotten a brief glimpse of him in the shadows for a second in the story trailer. Odin, of course, is a god with many names and is known for being both wise, mysterious, and even treacherous. I think it's safe to say that his approach to fighting Kratos will be very different from Zeus, but we're interested to see how that actually plays out. Now, next over at number 5, one of the few complaints people had about the previous game was the overall lack of enemy variety. We definitely felt it, but it doesn't look like it'll be a problem with Ragnarok, because the trailers are pretty stuffed with new types of enemies. Let's get the returning enemies out of the way. Draugrs are of course back, along with the trolls and the insect-like dark elves. Almost everything else seen in the trailer is new though. There's a giant crocodile-like beast that has a leaping lunge attack, and centaurs with bows and arrows and some kind of whip that they use to yank Kratos. There's some kind of huge rhino-like creature. There are lizard frog monsters called Grims that spit poison, an armored warrior with a glowing purple glaive that looks really cool, and the strangest of all is this gigantic swarm thing that moves around like a worm in Muspelheim. One of the most notable enemies from the previous game are of course the Valkyries, who were all so difficult that they were bosses in their own right. Now in the story trailer it looks like they're back with a vengeance and they're teaming up. Both Hrist and Mist take on Kratos at the same time here. We don't know if this is like a special boss encounter or if all the Valkyries are back, but the thought of fighting two Valkyries at the same time is pretty scary. There are a few new allies as well as some returning characters. Mimir, of course, is back with his many stories and lots of dialogue, along with the dwarves Brock and Sindri. Another new character who gets some focus is Durlin, quoted as an Usman ally, who you meet in the realm of the dwarves. Tyr is, of course, going to be some sort of ally, but another more mysterious character is Angrboda. We don't know how to pronounce that totally right, but this is a female giant in Norse mythology who's the wife of Loki and the mother of both the world serpent and Fenrir the wolf. This is all direct from the mythology. The game's context, we have no idea how it's going to be implemented really. Now, speaking of Fenrir, they show up in the cinematic trailer in a very threatening way, but considering Fenrir is destined to fight and kill Odin in Ragnarok, it's more likely that they'll end up being an ally in some way. That's not even the end of the wolf allies too. The end of the story trailer shows apparently Skull and Heit, the wolves whose father is Fenrir, chase the sun and moon across the sky just like in Norse mythology. They actually seem to be assisting Kratos and Atreus, and if you look closely you can see that one is white and the other is black, the same as the two wolves that pull Kratos' sled. Are they the same wolves? We don't know for sure, but it's interesting. Next over at number 4, this is a big one. Now in God of War 2018, even though you had access to the Rainbow Bridge to all the 9 realms of Norse mythology, you could only travel to 6 of them total in the game. The realms of Vanaheim, the home of the Vanir gods, the Dwarven realm, which we're not going to even bother trying to pronounce, and Asgard, of course, the home of the gods, were closed to you. In this game, that's not going to be the case. All 9 realms can be explored this time, it seems. The trailers show the land of the dwarves, Midgard, Alfheim, Helheim, and Muspelheim, but other areas are left out. Will some of the realms just be a place to do side quests like how some of the realms were in the original game, or will they all be fully featured areas? We don't know for sure, but game director Eric Williams has come out and said that the ones you've seen before are going to feel new again, so that's cool. Now over at number 3, if you're curious as to how long the game is going to be, according to people out there who have played the game already, and this isn't completely confirmed, the main story is said to take about 20 hours to finish and 40 hours to 100% complete. Again, this isn't all confirmed, some of this is just floating around the internet, but still, with a lot of people sitting at the original game anywhere from 30 hours or more, depending on what they did and how they played, it seems like a pretty good length for this type of game and a follow-up to the last game. But again, we don't know for sure until we actually put out a video reviewing the game. Now down at number 2, let's talk graphics and accessibility and stuff. There's been a lot of talk lately about console games being locked to 30 frames per second in some instances with no modes, and don't worry, it seems like God of War Ragnarok has graphics options. The game will let you pick between full 4K resolution at a targeted 30 FPS or a dynamic resolution upscaled to 4K at a targeted 60 FPS. That means you can play God of War in glorious 60, at least if you're on PlayStation 5. Now, Sony hasn't revealed the settings for the last generation version of the game, but the previous entry saw a capped 30 FPS on PS4 and PS4 Pro, and that's likely to remain the same. Now, another more positive bit of news about the settings is that the game will have more than 60 accessibility options, similar to the stuff seen in recent Sony games like The Last of Us Part 1 and Horizon Forbidden West. It should be pretty helpful for the people who need it, along with those trophy hunters who want a little help finding all those little collectibles in the environment. Now down to number 1, of course, some housekeeping info. The game finally launches on November 9th for PS5 and PS4. Regarding a possible PC release, Cory Barlog has said that he has no idea if Ragnarok will come to PC, and that's up to Sony if they want to do it, but just looking at Sony's recent push into PC markets, it's likely that the game will eventually show up on the home computer. It may be a few years before they get around to porting the game over, but it's likely that you will see it there eventually. Now, of course, with the rising prices in the world, the PlayStation 5 will retail for $70 in the US, while the PS4 version is going for $60. But unlike Horizon, there is no free cross-generational upgrade. If you've got the PS4 version, then you gotta pay a $10 premium to get the PS5 upgrade. All that, and there are 4 different editions of the game, only one of which actually gets you a physical copy of the game. Yeah, it's one of those collections that inexplicably comes with a steelbook, but no physical copy of the game. And that about covers it, but we still have so many questions. Are we going to learn more about Kratos in between the events of the old games and the new games? What's the deal with that mermaid? Is Atreus literally the father of a world-eating serpent and a giant wolf? How close are they going to tie to real mythology? We want answers, but thankfully, we won't have to wait very long. So let us know in the comments what you're looking forward to most with God of War Ragnarok, what kind of expectations you have, hopes and dreams, anything at all about God of War. Let's talk down there. If you like this video and maybe learn something about the new game, clicking a like button is all you got to do to help us out. We very much would appreciate that. But if you're new, consider subscribing and maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day and we'll have you covered once this game releases. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.